Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in the meaning of God and human experience by W.E. Hocking, published in 1912. We're going to take a look at chapters 16 and 17 and the knowledge of God. We have just concluded the need for God. Now we're going to take a look at the knowledge of God within personalism, and we're going to take a look at pages 229 to 255. So let's begin with block 1 and take a look at the knowledge of God as developing. And Hocking tells us that God is known in experience. The knowledge of God is capable of developing. Therefore, we do look back to the older origins of knowledge of God. We address revelation, we address tradition. We first seek the original sources of universal revelation. So under note 2, knowledge as universal revelation, God has been known in connection with other objects as mediators of divine presence. God appears in the experience of nature. God appears in the social experience. And for Hocking, he really does emphasize God appearing in social experience, in the social experience of shared personality. Awareness of God breaks through ordinary experience, and we have the stirring of religion in humanity. So knowledge is, note 3, a stirring of religion. Stirring takes place in man's sense of mystery and the apparitions of heaven that begin to work upon this sense of mystery. But Hocking says that the infinity of space and time is teeming with presentiment. The presentation of the divine is teeming in the infinity of space and time. In society, God comes to man in the events of death and birth. The idea of the soul emerges as the spiritual counterpart to man, to physical existence. So knowing takes place through spiritual counterparts in note 4. Signification emerges as the beyond of the visible, and access to knowledge of God is opened up. Experience of nature and experience of society become interrelated. Nature is found to be personal. There you go. Nature is found to be personal as a power displayed within nature. So we know God, we have knowledge of God through this display of power in nature. So note 5, knowing becomes knowing through personal nature. Initially, spirits are plural in nature, but heaven and earth have a natural unity and a natural universality, says Hocking. Spirit mass is gathered into a singleness of order. Religious experience becomes the experience of this nature power, this power in nature. So knowing of the power in nature, for note 6, his conclusion, nature becomes object of social apprehension. Notice, social personality apprehends this power in nature. The signal of awe emerges. The signal of awe is received by the self. But this is key. He says there is also the elemental experience that took place beforehand of dealing with the operating idea masses, because initially man attempted to express language about the spirits, says Hocking, because man tried to judge the whole and develop a language about the spirits. Fear and worship emerged together as notions. But we do really key in on this first part, on developing knowledge of God. We key in on those signals, the instincts, the signals. And he begins with the signal of awe. The signal of awe emerges, and fear and worship emerge. So we begin with the evidence of signals that trigger us and give us the emotive power to seek out this knowledge of God within the power displayed within nature. It is emotively reinforced, this quest. But it's all about judging the whole, and so in Block 2 we take a look at knowledge of God as this judging of the whole. Man's perceiving of the power within nature, then integrating that power within nature into a singularity, and then judging the whole. So Block 2, we begin with the statement that man needs to make. I know not, but he knows. The operation of the whole idea is a creation of value, says Hocking. We are aware of a sense of mystery concerning the whole idea, but the religious mind does not fully arise until man reaches radical self-sacrifice. So a universe of mystery offers opportunity for knowledge, but we must reach that expression, I know not, but he knows. So we are confronted by mystery, we are empowered by the signal of awe, and all we can do is declare our own inability to cross over into this realm of the unknown. So we confess scientific limitation. I know not, but he knows. So then we move on to stimulus toward the infinite. What happens after we reach this scientific limitation? We posit the thesis that the unknown of nature is knowable. Religion supplements science by providing stimulus toward the infinite. Science ends by positing symbolic inductions of nature, but this end of scientific effort, the end of scientific effort leads next to the refractory work of idea making. And refractory work means it's work against an opposing force. So the end of scientific effort next leads to refractory work of idea making. Scientific limitation leads to positing, I cannot, but he can. So what about this, the conclusion in Note 3, what about this refractory work of idea making against a resistance? In other words, it's the work of pugnacity, the work of fighting the good fight. Remember our composite. The dialectic is a dialectic of pugnacity, of fighting the good fight. It's idea making against a resistance. Man is equipped with infinite faith and patience. The signal of reverence out of our ignorance is received, and this becomes the beginning of wisdom as idea making. All right, here we go. Another instinct emotive signal arises. See how he ties everything into that state of mind signaling. That becomes the beginning of wisdom as idea making. Refractory work in the realm of positing receives the signal of reverence. This is the beginning of holiness. Religion becomes the healing of alienation, or the healing of fragmentation, which is the meaning of Irene peace in the Greek New Testament. The Irene peace of the New Testament means healing of fragmentation, or healing of alienation. So note 4, this healing of alienation, man seeks to know the other than himself as a companion, not taking the world as we find it, not taking the surface reality, but realizing that there is a deeper, real world. God is known as companion, as recorded in consciousness, as recorded in tradition, as recorded in dialectical act, as recorded in token holy places that we identify throughout history. God is the other knower of the world. And here's the key when we get back to that social consciousness. Okay, take a look at Block 2, Note 5. Knowledge of God takes place in other minds than our own. The experience of fellow minds equals the real. Right now he's telling us, We know that the realm of positing is the realm of the real in the subjective sense, but in the objective sense, the experience of fellow consciousness, fellow minds, becomes the objective real. Substance has three classes: nature as physical objects in relation to self, as psychical objects in relation, society as other minds in relation. And all three together make up spiritual world. Man possesses an outer sense toward nature and an inner sense toward collective mind, or the personality of the entire community of Christ, the body of believers in a unity of mind, a social consciousness, which for Hocking is not equated with God, but it is where God is testified. It is where we find the testimony of the reality of God. It is where we go when we further refine our own judgment of the whole. And that is called the outer consciousness that corresponds with the inner consciousness of state of mind for the self. So state of mind that sends all of those signals of awe and dependence and reverence corresponds to the outer consciousness, and that's where we are going to finally, conclusively, reach knowledge of God in Block 3. This is where he takes us. Knowledge of God as outer consciousness. We begin with outer mind. Outer mind is beyond our powers of direct experience. It is not an object of sensation because God is a thinker of objects. God is subject, not object. The self can approximate the thoughts of this subject. Knowledge remains hypothetical concerning the otherness of the outer consciousness and other souls. We take up this work of imposing of concept. We seek the direction of the assumed real. We take on the step of imposing concept upon the object of the real. The self takes up a state of accepting the conscious relation of community. We enlist the logic of mutuality. The problem of social consciousness confronts us. We know that the idea of God is acquired in social outer consciousness, which corresponds with our state of mind consciousness at the subjective level. So we know where the problem of social consciousness confronts us, and we know how that is enjoined with our subjective state of mind consciousness, which together make up a spiritual world that has as its guiding idea the idea of God. And so if we take a look at 3.3, social consciousness, social consciousness places a demand on our thinking. We seek the infallibility of signification. I love that term. Hocking's very good at definition and very good at giving us very precise terms. We seek the infallibility of signification. In conservative Christianity, we talk about the infallibility of Scripture, but at a more fundamental level, we really should be talking about, says Hocking, the infallibility of signification. That's what theology is about. And we are dealing with a philosophy here that is theology, by the way. We seek the infallibility of signification. We recognize teleology. We recognize pursuit of ends, this playfulness in the governing of movement, the signs of the fluidity of kingdom. We recognize this presence, and it is visible in the outer personality of note 4. 3 note 4. Fellow selves are the endless treasure of more ideas, supplementing our fragmentary meanings. The character of response in other selves we attribute to be outer personality. There you go. Personalism. because an outer signal is received in response to our own positing, and it's an outer signal received from outer consciousness. And that brings us to the closing comments for this lesson, 3.5. Our positing is carried onward to further development. This further development caps our positing and then enters us again as return moment, entering into our own self-knowledge. Received as conceptual answer, it completes our faith of positing. God becomes real in this dialectical answer, in this dialectical work of pugnacity, in this dialectical refractory work against opposition. It's a struggle to reach and define the signs of the fluidity of kingdom. Tremendous, powerful teaching. I mean, I just really have to say this is really tremendous teaching. When he really does bring about knowledge of God within personalism as evidenced in outer consciousness, which corresponds with inner consciousness as the self's state of mind. So we look at a conjunction here, a conjunction where knowledge of God becomes an opportunity. The conjunction of inner consciousness with outer consciousness. That's the key to the entire lesson. Because we eventually reach, if you notice that last comment there, that return moment. We reach that return moment where we have a return back into our own self-knowledge as we refine our own state of mind. The completion of the faith of positing is described here. The completion of the faith of positing. Remember, the realm of positing is the realm of the real. It's that hinge moment between subjectivity and objectivity, but it's also a faith moment. We are anticipatory positing. We are positing that which we foresee concerning the kingdom of God, that which we anticipate as God's kingdom, as the kingdom of Christ. The realm of positing becomes a realm of faith. It's the faith of positing. That becomes complete when we have a response to our positing that caps our positing, that creates return moment with new ideas. And that becomes refinement of self-knowledge. And that is when we can finally say, God is real, because the dialectical answer completes our faith of positing. Tremendous lesson. This is going to wrap up chapters 16 and 17, pages 229 to 255. We'll pick up next time on chapter 18.